the fire chief for Summit Township and Spring Arbor, Tim McEldowney, Dave Wooden, Deputy Director of Fire Services for the City of Jackson, and from the Jackson County Central Dispatch Center, the Director, Jason Hammond. Welcome to the show, guys.
Good to be here.
Chief, Director.
Thank you.
Well, today we're going to talk about one of the issues that will be on every Jackson County voter's ballot. So who wants to tell us what we're going to be voting on?
So I'll go ahead and get started. We have a few issues that we want to take care of. Some of our concerns is staffing. There's been an increased volume of calls coming into dispatch. In the past 4 years, it's increased 7.5%. So it's about 861,000 calls in those 4 years.
Really? So we're 7.5% increase, but the population stayed the same.
Correct, and our staffing has stayed the same. One of the other things is that we transfer over 12,000 calls to our medical provider, which provides the EMD, so emergency medical dispatching. What that is the pre-arrival instructions for the citizens to try to help us save a life before the rescue departments and ambulances get there. And with that, sometimes we're missing some of the critical information. That critical information, we might get as a trouble breathing, and once they do the EMD part of it, it might be like a heart attack or a stroke. Well, if we're not getting that back, we can't update these guys, which more likely are going to be the first ones there. So it changes their priority call from a 2 to a 1. And then some of the other stuff, we have 4 dispatchers working and 1 shift leader. One of those 4 dispatchers is doing 3 jobs. They're doing the fire dispatching. They're also doing secondary call taking, and they do the law enforcement information network, so lean for law enforcement at the same time. Unfortunately, when that position gets busy, some delays happen because they're focused on a structure fire or a major, other major rescue issue that's going on. And so the law enforcement information network might get put on hold for a second until they can get that information out to them. So that's an internal delay that unfortunately
Yeah, you don't want to put anyone on hold from that center. So we've seen, Tim, on TV, a dispatcher will stay on the line while the little child is trying to maybe, assist the person. And it sounds like in that situation,
that doesn't happen in Jackson.
No.
In Jackson County, no. We ask a few basic questions. The dispatcher makes a decision here in Jackson on whether to send rescue or if the call needs further medical screening. And I would say from my perspective or from my experience level, it's the number 1 complaint as chief in both Spring Arbor and Summit Township that I deal with is residents calling and saying, why did I get put on hold?
Oh, wow.
During a medical emergency, this is their worst day. And it's something I have to tell my firefighters all the time to remember that, we get a little desensitized. But when somebody picks up that call, that phone to call 911, it's probably their worst day. And then to be asked to hold while their call's transferred, they don't understand why their call's being transferred. And even though the total 911 call may only last a 30 seconds to 60 seconds now, and eventually, as much as, but a relationship develops between that patient and our dispatchers. I know our dispatchers have the ability to give pre-hospital care. With a proper training, that call wouldn't have to be transferred. There's no reason for it to leave that dispatcher and putting somebody on hold. They can give that information. They can stay with that person until we arrive. And I just think that it's time for Jackson County. All of our surrounding counties do emergency medical dispatching, and I just think it's time for Jackson County to
that's surprising to me. I didn't realize that. And do you get that complaint too?
Yes.
Dave?
Often. In the city, we run priority 2, so we don't run some of the lesser calls unless JCA is not available. but oftentimes after that call goes to HVA to be evaluated, then they find out that the patient is having trouble breathing or something. So then we get a call back. Well, that's a 2 to 5 minute delay to go through that evaluation process.
And that can be a lifetime.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So life or death. I mean, this is, to me, that's got to be the most critical cause. Medical emergency, heart attack, something like that. And this millage would allow you to have essentially a medically trained person that's on the phone at the dispatch center?
Correct.
Jason, you can explain what they'll have to be certified in emergency medical dispatching, and it's quite an undertaking to get them there.
It's so the every dispatch would have to be certified, and that's a 3-day course, but it takes 18 months to bill out for our current center, and then there's continuing ed every year for each dispatcher. So we would have what we've stated is a couple dispatchers to take that increased call, because each call could last up to 3 minutes or longer, depending on what type of crisis it is. So there is continuing ed trainings that they would have to go through every year, and every staff would have to be certified before answering that call. But this would save the 90 seconds to 120 seconds extra that it takes for us to transfer that call, which is critical.
The other thing that I think will be really important is every call, the computer-aided dispatching, that's our CAD system, every call will be handled the same way, the same series of questions, and they will lead that dispatcher to what the true emergency is. Again, it will give them it will pop up on the screen with what the dispatcher should start, whether that's CPR, and then explain to them how to perform CPR. If it's something that has an injury with where they can stem the flow of blood, so somebody has a bad laceration, they can start to help. Because truly, we call ourselves first responders, and we are. Mm-hmm. But really, the person that picks up the phone and dials 911, that's the first responder. That's the person that's probably going to make the biggest difference on whether this is going to be a successful outcome in 911. It's that early intervention to do and provide some of that life-saving until we can get there, until we can arrive. Mm-hmm. And so I just can't stress enough how important this is, and it's pretty obvious how important it is because, again, other communities have already adopted that, and it's just this is a time for us to step up and make this happen.
Yeah, we don't know what we don't know.
Exactly.
So when the call comes in, does it say where the street address and everything? Do you get that now?
If it's a landline.
If it's a landline.
Landline only.
No one calls in on a landline anymore, do they?
We still have a few. We got about 9,000 of them in Jackson still.
I got one.
You do?
VoIP lines. VoIP. We still get the addresses and stuff on those as well.
But
for businesses and stuff.
But for most of your phone calls come in via cell phone?
Cell phone, yeah, 70% of them.
All right.
And then in the last year and a half, the dispatch center now takes text messages. So if somebody is in a situation where maybe they can't freely speak, they're able to text in. So our dispatch center and our dispatchers, their world has changed a lot. And another thing that I wanted to make sure that we touched on is, the additional personnel that we're going to need to make this happen. That's the biggest cost to the program, and the reason that we're having to ask for this increase is the additional personnel. They are under a tremendous amount of stress right now to get that call. As Jason said, over 800,000 calls. They have to get on and off that call as fast as possible. And I would say one of the other complaints that I hear is somebody feeling like they were rushed through a 911 call. And that, again, we're here to serve the public. And I just don't think we're serving the public if they feel like we're rushing through because we're short-staffed.
So dispatcher right now, they've got 2 phones up to their ear possibly.
basically. See, we're, in a way, we're going back to what we used to do in the 70s and the 80s, where we used to have priority dispatching, because there was an EMT, a policeman, and a fireman setting in dispatch to critique those calls and prioritize them. And we've just got away from it, probably for money-saving reasons.
And are you connected to the ambulance company right now through dispatch?
So we're connected through phone and
Through phone.
radio system through locally. So one of the things that we've discussed with our company, our ambulance company, is building an interface between both our center and their center. So if we did the EMD and we got the information, when we send it out to our local rescue departments and our fire departments, that they would also get it as well. So we're all receiving the same information at the same time.
I was going to ask if, with cell phones, if you can, if the dispatcher could FaceTime the caller, but it doesn't matter if they're not medical dispatcher, right?
Exactly. Again, because we're not EMD site here in Jackson County, if you're on one of the fringe townships, the Hanover or out on the edge, and your call skips to Lenawee County Dispatch, they have to EMD the call and then send it to Ann Arbor. So it never even comes to Jackson, because without having the EMD certification, Lenawee can't transfer that call back up to Jackson County where it should have been all along. So again, the EMD will solve a whole lot of problems that we've been,
Yeah, it's surprising. It surprised me because Henry Ford's a certain level trauma center, and we don't even have that with our dispatch.
I will say that this is supported by our medical controller, our fire chiefs, our 911 advisory board. They all support this 100%, which is.
Well, the question everyone wants to know is, what's that mean in terms of costs? And it's not a tax on a tax bill. It's on a phone bill, right?
Correct. So currently we pay $1.50 for the surcharge on every phone device that can call 911. But we are asking it to be the voters to choose to go up to $3 every phone device. And I say up to because $3 is the state limit.
Okay.
Can't go no higher than that. But each year, dispatch can only take in exactly what we can spend. So for me, it'd be a going before the county board, having them do a resolution to move it back to, let's say, $2.35, if that's all I can take in. So it won't be like $3 for life. We'd have to make sure my budget's done early to say, okay, this is what we need. This is the cost we need to be at.
Well, it sounds like we need it.
It does.
it is.
The ballot in November is going to have several issues. We've got school issues, we've got the jail, we've got this, and of course all the candidates, and and state proposals as well. So you can go and visit the county website or the Secretary of State website and see your ballot in advance, so you get a chance to study it and read everything ahead of time. So when it's time to vote, you know what you're doing. Is there more information that people need? Do we hit everything?
I think the hit big ticket items.
Yeah, the dispatch center, as Jason said, the one console has both our 911, or does the medical, does the fire, does law enforcement, lien, and then is call taking. And I got in the fire service in 1990, so 32 years. And that was a problem. I remember as a new firefighter and going to meetings that was something that we identified as fire needed its own dispatcher so that they could concentrate. When we get a large fire, back in 2005, we lost a firefighter in Summit Township, Captain Scott Thornton. And he called a Mayday, and our incident commander on scene didn't catch it. He was on a different frequency. Dispatch caught it but didn't understand what it was. We went through a lot of lot of investigating and a lot of soul searching to make sure something like that doesn't happen again. And even NIOSH had come in, National OSHA, and their recommendations were that we had a dedicated fire dispatching so that dispatcher can concentrate. Again, fire is so much, or fire departments are so much more these days than just fighting fires.
Well, we should have the best there is for life and death, I would say. And so police officers, firefighters, ambulance drivers, they don't know what they're driving to in every situation, do they?
Correct.
That's not good.
No. And it changes. And some of that is not necessarily as things change at the scene. If we don't get those updates, it can really put our crews in a bad spot.
So if, and you have to look at this, is if it doesn't pass, then what happens?
Well, we would continue doing what we're doing. I mean, we're making it work. It's not perfect, and trust me, we know with the economy, with inflation, that this couldn't be a worse time. But it's also something that just can't wait. So we're bringing it to the people, and we'll make whatever we're given work to the best of our ability.
We always have.
And how fast can you get things implemented once it does pass?
So once it does pass, so you're looking at 18-month build time for the software program. It takes us over 6 months to train somebody. So it's going to be at least 2 years.
Yeah. And if this is approved in November, it wouldn't start to be collected until July of next year.
Yeah.
Would be the first time it would be on a phone bill, and that only happens once a year in July.
Well, I had no idea you had to put people on hold. We can't have that.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't want it to happen to me.
No.
Yeah, it's pretty traumatic to the callers.
Yeah.
It is.
Wow.
If you're on the other side of it, it's unfortunately that's their worst day. So it's
Yeah.
traumatizing to them. And I get calls just like the chiefs do about why was I put on hold? Why was I transferred?
And that's the last place someone's expecting to be put on hold.
Yep. And why do I have to say everything all over again? I just answer these questions with this dispatcher. Why do I got to answer these same questions? And some of the times, the address they might not have, which then even makes the citizen even more concerned because one person has it and another person says they don't. So
Well, another factor to the need for additional dispatchers is that this impacts police, fire, and EMS. Because when an operator is tied up on a fire, they can't answer the lean channel for PD and vice versa. And we have got to have those lifelines linked up so that we can operate and our personnel can operate safely going forward.
Yeah, and if there's a bunch of things happening all at once, it's just multiplied.
And there usually
Which
is.
it will,
Yeah.
next thunderstorm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. All right, well, we got you guys here. Fall safety, we want to change our smoke detector batteries when we fall
Change the
back.
box.
Time.
Yep.
Okay.
And just, for the public, just to be really cautious of those alternative heating sources as the inflation rates have went up and we were all hearing about gas and the cost of home heating, that your circuits will only take so much. So putting electric space heaters on long extension cords is troublesome. So if you're going to do an alternative heat source, make sure you think it through. We do not want to come out to your home to put out a very preventable fire.
All right, guys, thanks for coming in today.
thank you. Appreciate it.
Chief of Spring Arbor and Summit Township, Tim McEldowney, Deputy Director of Fire Services for the city, Dave Wooden, and the Dispatch Center Director, Jason Heeman. Next up.